Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pam Greensky, and I'm the Director of Operations here at Advisicon, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Power BI Using Drill Down Reporting. A quick summary of who we are here at Advisicon. We are a group of passionate authors, teachers, consultants, and technologists that care a lot about helping organizations learn, scale, and grow with a mix of methodology and technology to deliver results. No matter a company's size, our team specializes in maximizing your business and personal productivity by leveraging the Microsoft technology experience. We offer bi-weekly or sometimes weekly webinars, which here at Advisicon we refer to as Webinar Wednesdays, in which we spend 30 minutes or up to an hour each week teaching topics ranging from Microsoft Project, Project Server, Project Online, Power BI, Visio, SharePoint, to project, program, and portfolio management, and methodology approaches. And with attending any of our weekly webinars, you'll receive free PDUs. Today's webinar is Power BI Using Drill Down Reporting, in which you'll receive a half PDU. So before we get started, just quickly, I want to go over a few things so you know how to best participate in today's event. So please review the control panel that should be on the top right of your screen. And this control panel gives you the option to adjust your volume, your screen size, the chat window, and some other helpful settings. The audience is muted, so in order to ask questions, you'll have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You can send your questions at any time during the presentation, and Ken and I will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. So it's now my pleasure to introduce the presenter for today's webinar, Ken Lowen. Ken is one of Advizicon's senior project managers and one of my very favorite instructors for the Webinar Wednesday series. So I will stop talking now and hand this over to Ken so we can get this webinar started. So take it away, Ken.
I'll do that, Pam. Thanks very much. And welcome to Webinar Wednesday, everybody, for today's presentation on using drill down reporting in Power BI. Power BI is one of the newest tools introduced by Microsoft, and it's extraordinarily powerful. It's one of the favorite topics I have for training on, and so I'm looking forward to doing a little bit of a deep dive into this one particular capability. Our agenda today, we're going to start talking about some of the basic concepts and your workflow in working with Power BI so that we all have a little bit of a foundation for how to use the tool. We're going to talk about some of the different approaches to drill down, and we're going to look at how we can set up dashboards and reports that use this in the Power BI web service, as well as setting up hierarchies in the Power BI desktop. And if we have time before our half hour together is over, we'll be glad to take some questions at the end. If we don't, please do know that we will get back to you by email after the fact. So one of our foundational things is with Power BI, for those who aren't already familiar with it, it's a cloud-based analytics service that helps you get faster, easier access to data, get potentially a live, real-time view of your business. It helps to make data discovery and exploration a lot easier. And I think that concept of exploration, helping you to be very agile in looking at the data that you are revealing from your business, is one of the key concepts. You can get insights from Power BI across a myriad of devices, everything from a mobile device to a tablet to your PC. It enables broad collaboration in the business intelligence space across your organization, and it allows anyone to visualize and analyze data. We've got a very wide variety of data sources available to us, as you see on the left side of the screen. We've got software as a solution. We've got on-premise data available. We can create custom data sources for our organization. We can put data into Microsoft Azure and explore that with Power BI. We can go as, kind of old school as going to Excel files. And then we can also model our data in Power BI desktop files, which might be linked to any of those other sources or importing information from Excel. And then in our Power BI service, as you see on the right side, we have the ability to create content packs, which allow us to make our data very portable across our organization. We can use natural language query. We've got very powerful sharing and collaboration capabilities. We can create live dashboards. Each one of the individual pictures that you see in the example screen there is referred to as a visualization. So as we talk about those, we will be looking at the various ways that we can visualize our data. When we put our visualizations together, we prepare a report. And those reports leverage data sets. So we're starting off by creating data sets, allowing those data sets to refresh, and so on. Let's take a quick overview of how Power BI works. We start off at the top where we import and we shape our data. So we figure out what are our data sources. We manage it and manipulate it in order to put it maybe consistently. Maybe we change what is a month in one data source into a quarter to match another one, or we may take a long identifier for a project and split it up into segments so that it matches the way that other data sources work. We might enhance our data in some way by pulling in additional data from other sources. We then create those visualizations that I mentioned earlier, and we publish the data from the Power BI desktop into the web service. At lower right, in the web service, we create dashboards from our data, from the visualizations, from the reports, and we may customize those dashboards. We then have the opportunity to share the dashboards with our audience and thereby collaborate. If we own our dashboard or our data source, we have the ability to configure how that data source is going to be refreshed, and that cycle then potentially circles back around. So at the far left, we see that we've got our Power BI service. We potentially have on-premise data. We might have data accessed through a data gateway. We might have data that is being sourced from mobile. And then we're moving through using our Power BI desktop in the upper right for the importing and shaping, the enhancing, visualizing, and publishing. So enough PowerPoint. Let's get into a live demo of Power BI. What I'd like to start by showing you is the web Power BI service where I have a dashboard deployed. And the idea that I showed in the agenda, where we're going to talk about two key areas, two approaches to drill down, speaks to one of the most important topics in project management, which is the need to get business requirements correct. The term drill down could have different meanings to different stakeholders in your organization. And so one of the first things we want to understand is that when somebody says, I want drill down, our next question needs to be, what is your actual requirement, or why, and get a deeper explanation, because drill down could potentially mean nothing more complex than I want to see more information. It could also mean I need to segment my information in some way. So that's why we're going to look at two different approaches to delivering what could be considered to be drill down in order to make sure that we understand, A, the breadth of the capabilities we have for doing things that are considered to be drill down, and also to figure out how best to address the needs of our stakeholders. So we're looking at a dashboard in the web-based Power BI service. And this dashboard came about through a particular client of mine that said, I'd like a dashboard for my PMO that shows me different cuts of the information in my project online environment. And this particular stakeholder had sketched out in Excel what visualizations he wanted, and then gave some examples of the underlying data that leads to that. So we created a dashboard that looks very much like this. When you use a dashboard like this, we'll expand our navigation over here. We look at down at the bottom of this left nav that we've got a data set or a series of data sets, and we created those in the Power BI desktop. And then in the middle of our navigation here, we have the section called reports. And so we took elements out of one or more of our data sets and we combined them into reports. And the individual reports have different visualizations, whether they're pie charts or stacked bar charts or line charts, anything like that, or tables of information, and they are then available to be promoted either as an entire page forming a report to a dashboard or elements of a report to a dashboard, as we see on the right. So we've pulled elements out of our reports to this dashboard on the right. We have the ability now to do what might be considered to be drilled down, and we just click on the white space in a particular visualization, and what this is going to do is take us to our report. If I look at the navigation up at the top, I look at view related, and this is showing me that I've got reports that have the same name as my dashboard and data sets that have the same name as my dashboard. So I can track back as in navigation here where I'm going to be going. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this tile and it takes me to the report. So I'm now in a report, and down at the bottom we can see navigation among multiple reports in this Power BI file. At the upper left, we see the Project Manager Distribution pie chart, which is the element that I promoted up to a dashboard. And I just used this icon up at the upper right, which is the pushpin icon, and pinned it to a particular dashboard. And I can pin one of these visualizations to any number of dashboards to create custom sets of content for my stakeholders. But the idea here is that I'm drilling down from a dashboard to a report that provides deeper information about this particular set of data. In this case, I can say, well, I'd like to look at the 6 projects that are represented by this project owner named Bonnie, and when I click on that pie, it filters the rest of the information here. And that's a behavior that is often thought of as being a drill down behavior. So we want to understand with our stakeholders what is the behavior they're looking for, and then as we develop these reports and dashboards, we consider what the performance is that they want to have happen, and we design our data accordingly. So that is drill down from a dashboard to a report in the Power BI web service. We're going to move over now to looking at another form of drill down with our Power BI desktop tool. And so I'm going to pull up my desktop tool right here. And I'm now looking at the Power BI desktop. And you'll see that down at the bottom of the screen, I've got 3 different pages in here. And I can choose when I'm done developing each of these pages to promote that up either en masse as an entire page to a dashboard, or I can take any one visualization. And this one bar chart that's got one element in it is a visualization. So if I was developing a report in detail, I would have more information on this particular page to make this a lot more intelligent, a lot more informative. But what I'm looking for right now is something where I can make it big so that you can see it easily on the screen as we go through our techniques. So in developing a hierarchy, which is the technique we use for drill down, we want to use data that is in fact hierarchical in nature. And I've created a visualization right here, which is of the type, if we hover over our types of visualizations here, a clustered column chart. And the data, if I go look over here at the the right nav, I can see the value that I'm pulling here is the work for each task. And I'm pulling it out of a table called the task time phased data table in Project Online. Certainly we can do this in a lot of different data sources, but I wanted to pull something where I could be pulling or creating for you potential scenarios that make sense to a project manager. We have a very, very easy capability that has been designed into Power BI to create a hierarchy out of time. And in support of that, Microsoft has made available in the Project Online data set a table called the time set table. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a field that is a date field, which is called time by day, and I'm going to drag it to the axis for this particular visualization. What it has done automatically is it has now separated out that work information in hours out into the years that form the overall data set. So across all of the projects in my environment, I've got time for work in the years 2016 through 2020. And you'll see here in my visualizations axis that this particular field comes to me already knowing about the concepts of years, quarters, months, and days, and what the relationships are there. So let's now see how we can drill down on this particular visualization if I were to put it into a report just like this. And of course, I can combine additional values with task work. So I could put task cost, I could put baseline work, I could put actual work, all sorts of things in there. I'm going to click on the drill down button up here on the menu, and when you promote this visualization or this report to a dashboard, the button is still there for you. So when I drill down on this, I click on the 2017, and what this does is it drills down to the next level of my hierarchy automatically. It's drilled down into the quarters, and I can do the same thing. I can say I want to drill down into Q3, and this is then going to give me July, August, September, and I can drill down into September, and it's going to show me the work by year, quarter, month, and day. And you'll notice up here on my title that the title has automatically changed with each one of those changes that I did. You may not have seen that happen, so I'm going to go back up the hierarchy and show you how that happens. When I click my up arrow here, I'm going to drill up and watch the title change. It's now changed to year, quarter, month, to year and quarter, and task work by year. Okay, there are other behaviors. If I want to drill down on all of these by the level of my hierarchy at the same time, I can pick up this double-headed arrow here and click down. And what I've done is I've drilled down into the hierarchy by 2 quarters. Now, you'll probably think about that a moment and then realize, wait a second, this is actually not necessarily very useful. There are probably some sets of data where it would be useful, but what this is doing is this is combining all of the quarter ones across those years, 2016 to 2020, all of quarter twos, all of quarter threes, all of quarter fours. So for a project manager looking at work by quarter, this might help me to understand how in aggregate my work is typically divided across a calendar year, but that is not a really likely scenario. I'm really stretching to make something like that make sense. And of course, if I drill down and it does the same type of thing by month and drill down, it's sort of like, well, it might be useful to know that on the first calendar day I've got 1,100 hours of work, but then again, probably not. The way that we want to take this is we want to use the other drill down arrow here, which is expand all down one level in the hierarchy. And so now when we click on it, we're getting a more useful result for most of our scenarios looking at this type of data. You need to know about both types of drill down working because they might be very, very useful to you in working with different types of data. But in this case, this has automatically told us I've got Q3 of 2016, Q4 of 2016, and so on, without us having to do really complicated gyrations. Literally, this took me a few minutes to set up in preparation for today's webinar. And I can continue to drill down, and I see now months, and when I get all the way down here, now I'm seeing my data literally set up by day across the entire subject period. So that is setting up a time hierarchy. Let's go on to another one. You'll recognize I've got exactly the same source data here. I'm starting out with task work across all of my environment. And what I now want to do is I want to take some other hierarchical data and form a relationship. When I come over here to the table of data that comprises project data, and I filtered this down quite a lot so that we're not looking at the wealth of information that's available in a default environment, I've got theme and sub-theme that represent some of the why behind doing a project. And I would like to create a hierarchy for that. So, and I'm going to combine it with my program. So I'm going to right-click on program name and select new hierarchy right here. And when I create a new hierarchy, I then have the ability to rename that. So I'm going to call that programs. And I have the ability now to add additional levels to that. So I'd like to add theme to it. And you see I have a new item in my context-sensitive menu when I right-click on theme, and that's add to hierarchy. And so I can add this to the programs hierarchy. And I'm going to do the same thing with my sub-theme, add it to the programs hierarchy. And now I can pull this entire hierarchy, just collapse it, and you see it's pretty unassuming there, but it does have an icon to show us that there is a hierarchy right there. I'm just going to pull that hierarchy into my axis for this analysis. And you'll see that my project work has now been grouped into the program name. These are the program names in my organization. And likewise, I can tell it drill down. I'd like to drill down to the next level. And in this case, the left drill down button makes sense. The theme section of my hierarchy is defensive, offensive, or operational programs or projects. And when I drill down one more, I now see that within defensive, offensive, and operational, I've got sub-themes. So I've got a certain amount of work dealing with capacity shortfalls, a certain amount working with improving margins, and so on and so forth. If I drill back up to the top and turn off drill down, what I may want to do is I may want to drill down on just a particular level. So when I select this on drill down, I can click on the program there for new capabilities deployment, and I find out that all of new capabilities deployment is offensive, and drill down on that one more, and all of those offensive projects happen to be classified as new product projects. But if I drill down into, say, my PMO, I find I've got both defensive and offensive projects in my PMO. All the defensive ones happen to be dealing with obsolescence, and all the offensive ones happen to be dealing with improved margins. So you can certainly see how this capability of themes has an opportunity to create a lot of different slicing and dicing or drill down capabilities for you. I can do the same thing with a geography. And so let's take a look at this, and we'll say at the top of that, I've got a region, and I'm going to create a new hierarchy. I'm going to call it geography, and hopefully I spelled that right. Geography. I can then add my countries, add it to the geography. I can add my province or state to that, and I can add my city to that. And then when I bring my geography over here to, whoops, so before I bring it over, I need to select my visualization, bring the geography over to the axis. And now I've got the ability to drill down in when I select my drill down. Let me turn that off, filtering. Drill down, I can go to North America. I can go to the United States. I can see I've got projects in 3 different states there. And in California, they're all in LA. In Washington State, they're all in Seattle or Vancouver. So we've looked at the 3 different capabilities for developing hierarchies. One is creating a date hierarchy, which is very, very quick just by dragging a date onto the axis of my visualization. We've also looked at creating 2 custom hierarchies based on fields that have got a hierarchical relationship that we're building, and we're determining that relationship. And then we also looked at the capability to drill down from our visualizations in our dashboards to our reports. I hope you found this discussion of using drill down reporting in Power BI to be informative, and that it's given you some ideas that you are interested in exploring in deploying Power BI reports and dashboards across your organization. Thanks very much for your time today. And Pam, do we have any questions that we've got time to address?
Actually, we don't have, oh, looks like I see one more here. What type of effort is involved in interfacing to external databases such as Salesforce?
That's really a great question, and there's a lot of opportunity to do that. We can just, we go into the Power BI desktop here, and you can see that there's a wide variety of online services that Microsoft has already built connections up to. So here we can see we've got, in terms of Salesforce, we've got both Salesforce Objects, Salesforce Reports, and a lot of other types of online services. We've got information in Azure. We've got some typical database platforms that might be on premise for you, and then local files. So great question.
And I think that is it for today, Ken.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you, Ken, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. We welcome your suggestions, your questions, and we want your feedback. So for more information, please contact Ken Lowen or Pam Greensky. And once you exit today's webinar, you'll receive a survey with questions about today's presentation, and we would appreciate it if you would complete and submit the survey in order to get your PDUs. You will also receive a follow-up email, usually by Friday, with a link to view the recording of today's webinar and an email that explains how to claim your PDUs. So on behalf of AdvisoCon, Ken and myself, we thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you participate in future webinars. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, everyone.